Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Juliette Beauchamp and I'm here with Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon, as well as Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus. We are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so if you have any questions or comments while we are talking and discussing, please do leave them in the comments or the live chat if you're over on YouTube, and we'll do our best to answer them during the live broadcast. So the topic of the day, just about a week ago, more or less, Apple announced that it would begin shortly in the near future scanning photos uploaded to iCloud for what they call child sexual abuse material. And this was met with a lot of skepticism and pushback from security and privacy experts, mostly saying that, there's potential for misuse of this system. So I think first, if we could just talk about, what's the technical aspect here? How is Apple going to scan these photos that are on iCloud? Because it's kind of it's sort of an intricate system, and there's like reporting, and then it goes to a person. And
sorry, I just jumped in. Ken, do you want me to?
I was just going to say, please jump in because you're going to be able to explain it better than I can.
All right, so just kind of the Reader's Digest version, which might not be as brief as I want it to be, but there's three aspects of this new system. And the first one, no one seems to have any problems with. It involves Syrian search, and all Apple is doing is it's building in keywords into Syrian search. So if you search for something, or your child searches for something that's, Apple says, unsafe, which, it's pretty broad. What they're going to do is throw up a flag that says, hey, you might not want to search for this. You might not want to be looking for this. Siri will say, hey, maybe you don't want to look for this. We've seen this also with like gambling and alcohol, where they give advice for addictions. So it's something along the lines of that. No one gets any information from you. No one knows what you're searching for. It just happens. It flags a keyword, and this pops up on your screen, or Siri tells you something. So that's that. Second one is messages, and it's entirely opt-in, and it's specifically designed for children. So if you have a family account with the child, which is under 18, you can, all right, there's two stages. So one, if Apple sees, or if your iPhone sees an image with sexually suggestive or sexually inappropriate, or really probably just nudity in general, it will blur that image and ask the child, hey, you sure you want to see this? And, if they're under 13, the parent will get notified. If they're over 13, they can they'll make the decision on their own. But Apple flags it and says, hey, you might not want to be looking. The same thing when they try to send it, they'll say, hey, you might not want to send this photo to whomever you're sending it to. It's entirely opt-in. It's entirely on device, meaning it scans it before you send it and after you receive it. So there's no end-to-end decrypting going on. No one is seeing anything. No one is involved in the process. No one has any idea what's happening. It's basically throwing up a red flag, kind of like the Siri search stuff, to kind of help kids maybe make better decisions. Sometimes you get coerced into doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. Sometimes you do stuff that you don't think through. We've all been there. And it's just it's like an extra layer. Plus, if you're under 13, your parent will be notified. And as a parent of a child who's 9, I think that's a perfectly fine idea.
I was going to ask about that. I want you to talk about that in a minute, Michael, as a parent. But anyway, go ahead.
So that one also, no real pushback from that. Again, you have to opt into it. It's off by default, and nothing gets sent to Apple. Nothing gets disseminated or distributed or anything. It's all on your phone. Now, the third one, which is what all of the hubbub and all the outrage has been over, is so Apple will be scanning the photos on your phone in no spliced language or in no uncertain terms. That's what they're going to be doing. And they're scanning for CSAM images, which Julia said before is child sexual abuse material, which now they're not actually looking at photos. Like Apple's not going to see your Christmas photos or your backyard gathering or whatever it is. They're scanning hashes, and they're scanning for known material that's been surfaced. So
they're making a match, basically.
right. Mm-hmm. So this community, I hesitate to call it that, but we'll call it that for lack of a better term. They trade these images. They sell these images. So what Apple does is they get a list of these images from the National Center for Missing
and Exploited Children.
Yeah, and so they'll get a list of those on a regular basis, and so they convert those images into hashes, and then they upload those hashes to your phone. And your phone uses those hashes to scan against the photos on your phone to see if there's a match. So if let's say that there's a known image. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children sends this image to Apple. Apple converts that, or maybe it's converted before Apple gets it. I'm not sure what that process is, but that's converted to a series of hashes, which is basically gibberish for me and you, but the computer understands what it's looking at. That set of code gets sent to every iPhone, and then they use that code to compare against the images on your phone, which are also converted to hashes.
Right.
So if someone were to get that information, it's meaningless, but the system knows. Now, if there's a match, that doesn't necessarily trigger a response. There's a threshold of some sort. Apple hasn't said
we don't know what
it
it is exactly.
Yeah, it could be 2 images, it could be 30 images. I don't know. And once that threshold is met, that's when Apple contacts the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and then they would contact the authorities, and then they would knock down your door and say, hey, what's going on?
And I think before that, there's a human review of
That's right.
the photo in question.
Yeah, you're right. I missed that. So yeah, after that threshold is met, right, then it goes to a person who takes the images in question, looks at them, and then makes a determination and says, hey, all right, yeah, these are the images that we're looking for. Oh, or the system messed up. Apple says the likelihood of a mismatch is 1 in a trillion per year. So that's pretty low. And it's also, the system's also smart enough to know, so, it's looking at hashes. If somebody were to recrop the image or tweak the image in some way, that won't affect the ability to figure out what it's looking at.
That's important. That was actually one of my questions.
Yeah. So that in a nutshell, that's what's going on. Now, it works with iCloud Photos, but the photos are being scanned on your phone. And that's where the problem comes in. That's where the outrage comes in. That's where people are saying, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, you told me my phone was private, but now you're going in there without giving customers any way to opt out. You're going to scan every single image on my phone for CSAM.
So I have sort of this is where I've been a little bit confused about the policy, because I think, and I think you might have actually mentioned this in your article, Mike, there's a lot of cloud services that already do this. And
basically everyone.
So, but I know that there's like what's the iCloud element then? Is it your photos that are uploaded to iCloud? Is it like if you have iCloud syncing enabled, then that's when they can reach your phone? Okay.
Apple has been a little bit kind of coy and vague, but here's the way I understand it. Whether you have iCloud Photos turned on or not, your photos are being scanned. If you have iCloud Photo turned on, that gets sent to Apple. So.
Okay.
The way I see it, the way I get it, the way I've read it and I've understood it, is that this system will do its thing, its AI, ML hash thing. Maybe create like a file or whatever. Because it sends the images and the hashes to Apple via iCloud. Apple can't get that information unless you have iCloud Photo turned on.
Okay.
So the system. Apple keeps saying in very specific language, the system only works if you have iCloud Photos turned on. And that's the way I understand it, is that if you have it turned off, you very well may have photos on your device that were matched, met the threshold, are ready to go, but can't go anywhere because Apple isn't reaching into people's phones to get that information. It has to be sent to iCloud. And it's been known that iCloud photos, Apple has the keys to that encryption. It can decrypt it, and it has.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if law enforcement requests it, various steps have to be filled in, subpoenas and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
Apple does have the keys to unlock iCloud photos encryption.
Right.
But it's not doing that unless you meet this threshold.
Right. So that's the, and
I just want to jump in for
Go
1
ahead,
second and big picture here. The thing is, and I think what's got people really kind of annoyed, upset, scared, angry, whatever, it's kind of the way this was rolled out. I mean, one of our columnists, Evan Schuman at CW at Computer World, made the point: good intention, bad execution, in terms of being able to explain this to people. Because Apple has spent the last week first rolling this thing out, then adding some more information on Monday with a white paper detailing how it's done, then trying to reassure people that this is not really a backdoor into your phone, and then it can be expanded, in other ways, and to look for other information in ways that could be dangerous to privacy. And this should have all been sort of put together and presented to people all at once to allay as many of these concerns. It was always going to be somewhat controversial, I think, when you think of, because Apple makes the case that it's all about privacy.
right.
And then, it rolls this thing out, and it at least sounds like to a lot of people like, what the hell are they scanning on my phone? And no one wants to defend child abuse here, and God knows no one is, but it just seems kind of big brotherly, which is, it's not like Apple to sort of step over the line that far, without a clear and rational explanation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Juliet.
I was no, go ahead.
We're probably saying the same thing. I was going to say that the rumor, scuttlebutt, speculation is that Apple did not expect this backlash at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I don't think they did.
This has kind of been rolled out in pieces. And there was a memo that leaked to employees that basically said as much, like, we will get past this. And all right, Juliet, you can say what you're going to say, because I don't want to go off on a tangent and then have you forget.
What I was going to say is, we've kind of been over the technical aspect, but I wanted to talk about what the security implications are here and the privacy implications here, and why a lot of privacy and security experts are really skeptical and really are saying, okay, there's a real potential for misuse here. I think I want to talk about that aspect because, and you guys can feel free to please do chime in, but it seems what a lot of them are saying are, okay, now that Apple has this system in place, what is preventing a potentially oppressive government or other group from going to Apple and saying, okay, here's all of these images that are, and this specific set of hashes that match images that are potentially, related to anti-government messaging or in favor of a cause that is illegal or something that is also illegal. And what is stopping Apple from not giving into those requests besides Apple saying we won't?
Right. Well, a couple of things.
That's what they're saying right now.
That's exactly what they did say, that we will unequivocally oppose all requests. And it comes down to trust, but we'll get that. We'll get to that in a little bit. So first, it's very clear to me from the way this system is designed that Apple went to great lengths to make sure that privacy was taken into account. They could have, years ago, said, we're going to scan every single photo in iCloud Photos, and that's that. That would have made them on the level of Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, everybody. They do this. Facebook sends something like, I don't know, 50,000 images, millions, I forget, some ridiculous number of CSAM images get relayed to the Center for Exploited and Missing Children every year. It's an absurd amount. Nobody complains about that. Apple didn't want to do that. it's very clear that that was an option, and they said no, we're not doing that. We're not going to scan every photo that we get, because then it's a different way of looking at it. Then they have access to all of our photos. They can decrypt them whenever they want to, and then they can just look at them.
Mm-hmm.
This system is extraordinarily specific to this, and make sure that the encryption that is in place isn't messed with unless you, again, reach this threshold. And it doesn't create a risk for anyone who wants to use iCloud. I mean, you can easily say, hey, I'm not trading in that stuff, so I have nothing to worry about, and you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Apple describes the system, there's not going to be, if there's a false positive, it's going to be pretty rare. It's, like I said, $1 trillion per year. I mean, that is an extremely low rate. So if the system finds anything, it's almost certainly going to be legitimate. Now, I don't know if Apple is prepared for the level of legitimacy that it might get, because based on the numbers I see out there from other cloud services, it could be flooded. I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. But Apple didn't want to just turn on scanning for CSAM over iCloud.
Mm-hmm.
That's, Google Photos does that. Dropbox does that. It's that those systems are in place and they're there. And Apple didn't want to do that. So what they chose to do kind of runs against what they've told us the iPhone is. And this is where the disconnect comes in. And I totally get it, because I mean, they've run billboards that says what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. And now there's a but, and a big one, because they developed a system where they can scan every photo on your device for whatever they want. And it's not a backdoor.
Bingo.
In the sense that, like someone can take that and use it to hack your phone, but it's a little crack.
It's
a
a
little
little
crack.
back door, but it's a
Yeah.
back crack.
It's a little tiny crack.
And I think the issue, Juliet, to your original point here is that, government now Apple says this only applies in the US.
That's right.
Therefore,
And honestly,
at this
it may never go anywhere
At
else.
this
We don't know.
point,
We don't know.
Apple's defense is that, you don't have to worry about a repressive government leaning on us to start scanning for whatever, repressive governments we want to look for.
Right.
But, I think the concern that security and privacy experts have is that, even the smallest little crack in the security privacy bubble around Apple devices can be exploited at some point down the road. You don't know how it might get exploited, and I'm not
Sure.
saying it's going to literally be exploited, but you just have to be very, very careful about opening these doors. And as Michael said, it's like it goes against what Apple has been saying repeatedly about its devices and its concern about privacy.
At the same time, it's in line with what Apple has been saying. It's the literal definition of a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to implement this system, and as I said, they're lagging behind others who have done it. Google's been doing it for like, I don't know, 5 maybe 10 years. It's not something that's new. The technology is relatively new that they're using, but the idea of scanning for CSAM images, that's not new. Apple just hadn't done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's coming out now, my guess is because it took this long to develop this extraordinarily intricate system that does protect our privacy and doesn't open up our photos to anybody who wants to scan for anything. But there's always a but here, because it doesn't, and Apple is keeping encryption, keeping privacy, making sure that no human at Apple, no person working in Apple can see anything unless it rises above a certain. All that is great, but what's next?
Yeah.
There's that question, and it comes down to trust.
Right.
And it's really hard when a company cares about a company as big as Apple, the biggest company in the world, biggest tech company, almost practically the biggest company in the world. They're a business. They need to make money. they care more about money than they do us. That's just how that's going to work. So do we trust them enough? If, let's say this rolls out to China and China says, hey, you put in rioters, homosexuality, and drug use, or you can't sell your phones or make them here anymore.
Right. And that
What's
I think
Apple going to do?
right. And I think
that's the
That's
slippery
what-
slope that everybody's worried about.
yeah.
And maybe for that reason they never roll it out to China. That could be. Maybe they just say, we don't even want to.
Or maybe
the
China says-
possibility of that, or maybe no
Or maybe
country.
maybe China says, unless you roll it out here, you can't make your phones in China. I mean, there are
Well,
ways.
I don't
of
know.
doing-
That's different. Then that's like extortion. That's a little different. Then if the system isn't
close.
working in your country, they could do that at any time, man.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if the system's in place and working in China for this, and Apple has said before, we will abide by the laws of the countries that we operate in. If China passes a law that says every phone has to scan for this, if they have the ability to, and then they do it. I mean, do I think Apple will say no? I don't have a clue. China's that's a big market. Plus, they make a lot of phones there. I don't know. I don't know.
right.
I honestly don't know if it came to that what Apple would be do, because they're pretty much damned if they do and damned if they don't.
And that's the point, Michael. And you sum it up really well. It's the but. It's the raising of doubt now. In terms of iPhone, iPad users. We should note this is rolling out with iOS 15.
iOS 15.
Yeah,
we don't
that's
know.
what I was
We
gonna
don't
get
know if
to.
it's going to
It's
roll
not
out
out yet, but it's
on day
coming soon.
one.
Yeah.
They haven't said. They just said iOS 15, iPad OS 15, WatchOS 8, and Monterey. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know yet if that's iOS 15 on launch day, iOS 15.1. They said later this year, but it could be an update down the line. We don't know.
Yeah. I was wondering a little bit about timeline, and we kind of already answered this viewer question, but I guess I think it's like mostly related, and I'm just going to kind of, apologies to this viewer, I'm just going to kind of adapt this question a little bit, and talking about AI, and I guess sort of saying, okay, but like, is this a way to, and I certainly don't think that this is the case, like to train a machine, but Apple already has like it's for something else. So like, let's say like if you can look in, if I want to find a photo of my dog on my phone, I can type in dog and dogs come up. So it seems like this is certainly like not an AI play.
The AIML stuff, the Siri search stuff, absolutely is
Right,
related to that. But this doesn't appear to have any machine learning aspect of it. They are physically uploading hashes
Right.
that they get from the Center for Exploited and Missing Children, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like, it's not adapting. If there's any ML work or ML stuff at play here, it's those images and understanding that if this gets tweaked, it's still this, like within those images, maybe. Because, as people try to trick the system and try to say, well, I colored over this part of it or something, and the hash is different. So there's probably stuff at work within that.
Right.
But it's not going to look at pictures of kids in your bathtub, like your son at 2 years old in the bath, or running around outside in the sprinkler and saying this is season. That it's not gonna get. That's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
Mike, as a dad, are you happy to see this? We touched on it earlier. What's your thinking as a parent?
I mean, honestly, I think Apple is absolutely doing the right thing, and I think they did the right thing. If this has to be a part of the phone, and I think it does. In fact, I always wondered, why Apple wasn't doing this. I do. I'm glad to see it as a parent, and I'm glad. I honestly, I do think Apple did the right thing. The way they're handling it is I think the best way to do it, even though it does mean that they're doing stuff. I mean, listen, Apple does plenty of scanning and things on the device. I think this is the smartest way to do it. I think it's the most accurate way to do it, so you don't have false positives.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the best way to find people using iPhones who are doing this because the alternative, yeah, you can shut off iCloud Photos maybe, but it's not as simple as just going to another service, because now you're dealing with things happening on your phone.
Right.
I do. I think it's smart. I'm more impressed with the messages stuff that they did. Like that, as a parent, my son doesn't have a phone yet. He's too young, but when he does, I mean, even if it's not missing and exploited stuff, there's sexting and things that kids do. And, I'm not always there to tell them, hey, think twice about that, or don't do that. So yeah, if his phone can throw up a little warning and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe it'll cause a kid to think twice and say, or someone to wait 5 minutes and then forget about it, something like that. So I'm down with all of this. I do understand where people are coming from, though. I understand the outrage. I understand the fears 100%. I don't think the alternative is any better. And what's interesting,
That's a good point.
in all of these arguments, no one has suggested a better way. At least not that what I've seen. I can't say no one, but of all the articles I've read that say, here's what could happen and here's how this could go horribly wrong, and they make a compelling point, particularly with the government stuff. Okay, so what's the better way? I don't think opening up iCloud Photos is better or safer or more private than what Apple developed. I don't.
All right.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. I think like you said, Mike, I think that there certainly there is a privacy and security argument to be made, but yeah, it's mostly just a case of Apple had to do it. Everyone else was doing it.
Again, it comes down to trust.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are making those arguments, I mean, they don't trust. It's not just Apple. They don't trust anything.
Yeah, certainly.
And rightfully so. Why should I trust Apple?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a customer. I'm not their friend. I'm not their family member. But I think, particularly recently, going back to San Bernardino again,
mm-hmm.
that Apple has kind of gained a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. And they've shown that they're willing to fight the government. And at the time, and even going past that, Apple was the bad guy in that situation. Let's not forget.
Right.
People said to them, hey, this is a terrorist. What are you doing? And Apple said, no, we're not opening that door. We're
mm-hmm.
not. And they went to court. They were blasted. There was a boycott Apple. They could have just caved, but they didn't.
Well, and just to wrap up real quick too, I know you want to go, Juliet, but the point here too, and you made this, Michael, is that Apple could have done this in a lot easier way. That it obviously went through a variety of steps to try to protect privacy. It could have just said, we're going to start scanning iCloud Photos.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, they are trying to still hang on to that privacy aura that they have. And, and as you say, what's the alternative? So it's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Not every single. Go ahead.
I was going to say my only confusion is that Apple didn't see this coming.
True.
I don't know how.
True.
I mean, they got a lot of smart people working at that company.
When I first saw that, I'm like, they're doing what?
Yeah,
what?
right. Because and
I think a lot of people did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a consumer, as anyone living in 2021, yeah, it's concerning. And Apple probably could have, should have, maybe rolled it out better. They also kind of forced their hand because it leaked last week. So they had to get it out there before all the leaks became, hysterical. But when they rolled it out, it only confirmed the leaks. Like, it didn't actually offer much in the way of assurances. And the evidence or the documents that they've released since have helped. I think there's more to come. I also think there will be lawsuits. I think this is
Certainly.
we're going to hear a lot more about this going forward. But I do think it's important as both a parent and a human being. I think CSAM it's a scourge that people generally don't know, because if you don't look or traffic,
on your radar.
You don't know what's happening. But it's a big problem.
Hmm.
And if Apple can help combat that, I'm on board.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me. Like I said already, really appreciate it. And if you were watching and you have any questions that we didn't get to specifically about how this relates to privacy and security and this, so-called slippery slope that privacy and security experts are talking about, do let us know in the comments. I'm interested to hear your perspective. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to our channel. We talk a lot, and I'm hoping to talk more about privacy and security going forward. This is a very interesting topic. So you can subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss an episode. If you are watching on LinkedIn, you can head over to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk. Thank you.